Hey everyone, welcome back to the Relationship Circle podcast. I'm your host, Beck Thompson, and this podcast is all about showing you how to stop running in circles, ditch those games, and let your inner compass lead the way. Today, I am so excited because we have Dr. Hilary and Dr. Jaxson on the show. How are you guys?
We're so good. So excited to be here.
Yay, so excited that you're on here, and thank you for joining me. You'll hear a little bit later in the show, everyone, that we are having an event together coming up in March, April and May. So we'll definitely talk about that because I spoke about it with a client today and I just got really pumped again. So we'll definitely talk about that. But let me introduce you guys before we get into anything. So Dr. Jaxson and Dr. Hilary are holistic chiropractors and kinesiologists who own and run their own health and wellness clinic in Sydney's inner west called Luminous Body. It's not in your bio. Everyone needs to go there. And they're a power couple who have been through it all, supporting each other in over 14 years of huge life changes. Hilary was or is an elite athlete. I didn't know this, and saw their relationship fly to China for the world championships. And Jaxson is a transgender man who navigated his journey to wholeness with his wife firmly by his side. They are experts in trauma therapy, especially when it comes to body work for healing. They are advocates for health and wellness and in every community for all people from all walks of life. Yay.
Yay.
So excited to have you guys here.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's so nice to be able to have a chat about this stuff because, I mean, like, what a ride.
Yeah, what a ride. What a ride.
It's you guys have been through, I love whenever I meet both of you together or individually because you're just such a cool couple, which we can talk about. But what I would love to jump into
It's glad that you said that we're cool.
Yeah, now I feel really good. Keep talking.
You are cool. Yeah, you are cool. Everyone will see that and hear that and know it. Someone said to me today, not a lot of people can pull off pink hair. And I said, yeah, I don't know if I really can either, but I'm doing it anyway. So there you go. Thank you. Thank you. What I want to jump into, because a lot of what we're doing in the workshop is around the nervous system, and you guys are so, particularly you, Hilary, are so knowledgeable in this area. And I think it's a really important area to be discussed because, whether you're, a lot of the people listening to this podcast are either single looking for love or they're in a relationship. And so I just want to hear from you how, about the nervous system, I suppose, on a basic level, so people can understand what it is, what does that mean, and how does that impact people individually and couples?
This is the best question ever.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the nervous system essentially in the body is your brain and your spinal cord and your nerves. And the primary function of our nervous system is to interpret the world around us so that we can respond appropriately to our environment, to be really, basic about it.
Yeah.
But the role of the nervous system, I mean, I guess we all know that the nervous system is in control of our movement, our sensation, all of the really basic things like digestion and our heart beating, for example. But I think what people don't really know about the nervous system is that it wants us to survive. Its sole purpose is to keep us alive. And it has so many different ways to do that are beyond our conscious control, that shows up in lots of different ways. So essentially throughout our life, our nervous system, our body is taking stock of everything that we've ever been through, keeping notes, recording how we survived by means of how we've responded, reacted to certain situations, and then drawing upon these lessons in our day-to-day life. And we're not having this conscious process day to day, this happened 15 years ago, someone said that I smelt weird and, now I'm paranoid. We're not thinking about that kind of stuff. But what does happen is the nervous system, from the memory of our life and, various other things, will cause us to respond in a certain way that it thinks is the best for our survival. And left unchecked, that can look pretty hectic for a lot of people.
Yeah. How does it show up? How do you see it show up for people?
Well,
I know it shows up in a million ways, but give me some.
So many different ways. Essentially, I'm sure most people have heard of the word triggered. So emotionally triggered. essentially what can happen is we can, in our day-to-day lives, have these reactions that so far surpass the reality that we're currently in, because our body's responding not just to our day-to-day lives, but our body's responding to everything that's ever happened to us. So if we're in a situation that might remind our nervous system of a situation we've been in the past, we're going to mount a full response to all of the ways it feels threatened, which means from the past and in the future, not in the future, but in the present, which is what the trigger is, right? So it's this big emotional response that doesn't seem to make very much sense, because maybe your partner just didn't say hi straight away when they walked in the door, but suddenly you're feeling like they don't love you anymore. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it can, yes, or it does, take us to different zones of the nervous system. So when we're triggered, we're often either in a red zone, which is feeling, stressed and anxious and perhaps angry and flighty, or feeling shut down. So we could be in a situation where our partner says something, mildly critical, and that could send us straight into that blue shutdown state where it's really hard to engage and respond. And I think, unless we begin to become aware of these things, they just govern our lives.
Yeah. So how do we become aware then?
Well, that's the golden question. I guess the first step to being aware would be recognizing that you're not making progress, that you are repeating patterns, that you, regardless of how much you want to be different, you're not being different. And so the very, very first step of noticing and taking control of these reactions is becoming aware.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like every podcast I record when I'm like giving steps of like how to do things. I'm like, awareness. I feel like this broken record, but it's so important, isn't it?
You can't do it without that awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like, being able to be responsible for how you show up would be the next most important step.
Yeah.
And that's really
huge.
hard.
Yeah, of course it is, because then you're owning it, right?
Yeah. You're owning it.
Yeah.
And, we don't like to own that sometimes we can be a bit crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I literally just had a client call just before this, and she's dating a new guy, and I said, has he only seen like the light, happy sides of you, or has he seen like, the shadow parts of you, because he needs to see all of you, and it's so true. People, that darkness or the shadow, like society doesn't love it. People don't love it. Like everyone just loves this. Yeah.
Oh, it's like we pretend that it doesn't exist.
Totally. All the time.
I know. It's so bizarre.
Everywhere. Yeah. And it's only half of us. Hey?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But it's really interesting. Absolutely.
It's the only way to grow is to be, involved and interested in that part. And I think like it definitely shows up in life through stresses. So like, especially in relationships, if there's a stressor, something doesn't feel good, something doesn't feel right, that's your first point. That's where the problem is, or that's what is reflecting back to us. And that's where the awareness comes with, without thinking, what are my patterns? Sometimes it's just like something's just not right.
Yeah. And I know you also talk a lot about self-regulation and co-regulation. And I think a lot of people I work with maybe know what self-regulation is, but they don't fully understand what co-regulation is. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that and the importance of, being in a partnership or relationship with someone and having the knowledge of that, or using the skills with that, or knowing about it. Yeah.
Really. I reckon it's essential to understand co-regulation if you're in a relationship with anyone. It includes like people at work or your kids and things like that. And like co-regulating, it's important to remember as well that it's actually a natural state. We're kind of designed to co-regulate the same way we're kind of designed to self-regulate. But I suppose our ability to co-regulate is also dependent on our ability to self-regulate as well. One of the best tools you can bring into a partnership of any kind is your own sense of being regulated, going up and down your states while still being connected to yourself. And really that's what co-regulation is in a relationship. So you have a relationship that is kind of its own entity in a way. And it's kind of like regardless of what's going on in life or in your relationship, you're still connected to each other. And that's essentially what co-regulation means. But if we're going to get a bit more scientific about it, when someone's regulated, they're able to experience their fight or flight system. They're able to experience their shutdown system and everything in between. And in between, we have things like joy and love and gratitude. You're able to experience all that without losing yourself, so while still staying connected. And so when we're regulated, people are more likely to regulate with us, especially people in distress. But in a partnership, your partner can regulate with you when you are regulated. So being regulated, it's like having two people joined by some force between them, where their nervous systems actually match each other. So it can take you down or up or anything like that. As long as you're connected, you can sense when your relationship's nervous system has changed as well, in a way. So if it's gone into, if your partner's become anxious, you'll be able to feel that and check in appropriately, which maintains the connection, right? So there's this kind of like limbic or emotional resonance between two people when they're co-regulating. A great example really of how co-regulation works is if you've got a little kid and they fall over and hurt themselves, how you approach that as the parent or the regulator, how you approach that will imprint on that person. So if you approach the kid with a very calm, in a calm and giving way and allow them time and space to process their emotions, they're co-regulating with a calm and grounded person. And so they are more likely to approach stress in a calm and grounded way. Whereas if someone falls over and hurts themselves and then their parent freaks out and gets them up and kind of scares them, it'll take them into a different state of their nervous system. It's not regulation, it's like escalation when that happens, because the child's system has become like moved into a fight or flight zone rather than down into processing zone, right? The beauty of co-regulation between people is that you're more likely to like problem solve, experience a real connection together. There's usually a sense of safety and also like the permission to just be yourself.
We see, we use co-regulation a lot in clinic, and you would use co-regulation a lot in your sessions. It's really often that we have patients coming in having a really hard time, and just being next to someone who is calm and centered tells their nervous system through subconscious cues that they can also be calm, connected and grounded. So I think,
matching. It's a matching of two systems, isn't it?
Yeah, we're geared towards matching the person we're
Yeah, it's I still remember having like Flynn when I was little, and they talk about how important skin to skin is, and even being able to regulate together, but it feels like it kind of drops off society's radar after that. Like even as a little, like, don't cry, don't, you're okay, get up, or, oh my God, we better go to the hospital, are you okay? Like it's just interesting that even like you have it as a tiny baby, but then it's just gone.
Yeah, I love that you say that, you use that example too, because I think as like the more obvious cues change and the other person seems more independent or whatever, we tend to disconnect a lot. But those responses can only come from a dysregulation as well. So when there's a lot of chaos or panic, or when there's a lot of distance between couples, it's like really, really hard to regulate that.
Yeah.
I can't remember it. That was a point there.
I actually love what you said before when you said the relationship is its own separate entity.
Yes.
I love that.
That's it. Yeah.
Were you? Oh, there you go. I knew.
I was like, I'm just going off now. Okay. Yeah. That's because, it's like this state that you're in is the state of your relationship. So if you've shut down and distanced from each other, then your relationship's nervous system has gone into that shutdown zone as well. And so you can feel it by how you feel around each other and how connected you are as to how much you're co-regulating, I suppose. Yeah. And I think it's also really important to mention that, as long as there's safety, people will they're naturally more likely to regulate with a regulated person. So they're not necessarily due to safety going to gravitate to someone who's dysregulated. They're more likely in the room, let's say, they're more likely to gravitate to someone who's regulated, which is so powerful when you think about how stressed your partner is when they come home, or if they've experienced something that's distressing, or anything really, if they're just tired. it's nice to be able to be like, okay, the best thing I can do is actually approach my partner in this situation as a regulated person, because they're just even just them interacting with me is going to help them with wherever they're at.
Which is again why it's so important to have that awareness of yourself, right? Because if they're coming in stressed and you're then getting stressed and heightened, and I hear that all the time from couples, and they're blaming the other person because they've come in and like the other person has control over them, like, and it's like no one's getting anywhere because no, you need to do something different, or you need, no, let's just take responsibility for ourselves.
And you know what?
That's how to regulate.
That's the best point. I was reflecting, we went through a really, really challenging time a few years ago, and a lot of it kind of came down to me having to show up very differently. And the only way that I could commit to self-regulation was by being so responsible for who I was in the relationship. And it wasn't until I could take ownership of all of the parts of me that I really struggled with that I could self-regulate properly. Because self-regulation allows you to commit to who you want to be long-term, and it allows you to show up in a way that is authentic and genuine. And without, giving into the impulsive hurt or the impulsive reactivity, it's like, you know what? I'm committed to actually being better than this, and I'm going to do what I need to show up differently.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because having that like long-term perspective means that it's not about just that moment, that you can think about it a bit further. And like what I just thought of then when you were speaking was, it's important to own, like, by you taking full responsibility about who you were means that you had the capacity to show up differently. Like, and that's exactly what you're saying, right? But until you get to that, I want everyone to hear this, until you get to that point of like owning those parts, there's no way through it because you're ignoring them. So if they don't exist, how do they get changed? It's not until that light's shone on it that it actually diminishes.
100%.
Well, they get projected, firstly.
Yes. Let's talk about that. That's a really cool topic.
Exactly. Everything you don't like about your partner is actually you.
Yes. Let's talk about that. That's huge.
Massive. It's massive.
Huge.
Because, it's really easy to see the faults in others because it's safe. It doesn't shame spiral us. And so the minute you can have just enough awareness to perhaps think, oh, maybe I'm showing up in that way, everything shifts and falls away, and the real work starts to happen. But, it can be years of projection, like you don't love me, or never being able to hear that your partner loves you because you don't love yourself. You don't feel worthy of that. You're going to make your partner that person until you can be that person for yourself.
Huge. That's going to be, take that clip, put it on the reel. That's a good one.
Yeah, responsibility is so good because it's like, it really is about giving yourself more options, like giving yourself more the ability to actually respond is what responsibility is. So when you go, all right, this sucks, this is a horrible situation, and but what part of this speaks to me, and where am I at with all of this? And then once you take ownership of how you've shown up, which might be, I do love you. What's wrong with you? You're this, you're that, or whatever, the lecturing and mansplaining, then it's like, okay, then I can give myself more options to show up in a different way. Maybe, if you just get stuck in it's the other person, it's never going to shift. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, as soon as you take responsibility for your own stuff, you give yourself options to show up differently. That might be, to apologize, to calm down, cool off, start the conversation differently, actually do the thing that's annoying yourself, whatever it is that's showing up, you give yourself way more options.
I think on that note, not taking responsibility means you're always out of control because you're always waiting for somebody else to change so that you feel better.
Guaranteed reactivity, guaranteed dysregulation.
And so as soon as you can be responsible, be accountable, you fully take back control. You're in the driver's seat. There's nothing more empowering than saying, I'm a fucking asshole. I've got to change. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What?
Swearing is allowed. It's okay. It's true though. And it's like, I do that sometimes. In the middle of me talking, I go, oh my God, that was not okay. You know, like it's.
Totally.
So, I mean, we were just playing golf the other day and I was driving and I was really, you know, the Hulk thing, am I hungry, angry, lonely, tired, stressed? Yeah, well, I was like all of those, except for lonely. We were together, we were playing golf together. And I went down the wrong road. I literally was just driving, turned down the wrong way. He was like, it's the wrong road. And I stopped the cart and I was like, put it in reverse. And I was like, well, if you're going to talk to me like that, you can walk back.
And I was like, I'm going to walk back.
It was like, we're literally in the middle of nowhere. And it took me another 30 seconds to be like, whoops, probably shouldn't have said that. It's like, you know, snap back. That's an imprint on me from my childhood, and it just goes like that. You know?
Yeah. I love that example because it just, I hope that reminds people that we're human and, you know, even when you do all this work, you will make mistakes and it's okay. Like it's okay to admit that you're wrong and that, you know, you could have done better because we're here to learn and grow. Like I have a 4-year-old who says to me, I know everything. And I said, I'm trying so desperately to teach him that you don't know everything and that it's a really important thing that you don't know everything because then you can learn things. Like, it's, you know, how many adults walk through this world thinking, I know everything. I know about that. Don't worry. I don't need to learn that.
Yes.
Or I am who I am. I'm not, I had someone say to me today, but that's just who I am. It's my personality. I'm not changing. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you let me know how you
just
go
say
with
that back to you. That was the best thing for me when we were in really good couples therapy. It was like I would say things because I'm a catastrophizer. So I'd be like, well, if this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen. And my therapist would repeat it back to me. I would be like, oh no, that's not right. No.
That's not what I said.
He's like, so if she does and then you'll do and then this will happen. And I'm like, no, that won't happen. And it's beautiful part of co-regulation because now I do that for myself.
But
there you go.
Yeah, totally.
It imprints on you.
You said something really, really important just before. You said,
good.
Yeah, it was so good. It's like, it's okay to make a mistake. Relationships are not about being perfect. They're about growing together. And also, when you are not connecting well, when you're having a hard time, that's fine. That's normal. What matters is how you're able to repair. Like, how
huge.
how are you able to show up as your best self in a really hard situation so that you can reconnect and grow, continue to grow?
Yeah. It's not about the problem, really. It's about how you come together with it. And I was going to say something about that, but I won't now. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, it's like, it just comes back down to that regulation part.
Yeah. And repair's huge. Yeah, massive. And you're going to have to come to the workshop to know about repair.
Definitely.
Because we can teach you that.
What I was going to say, like, oh my God, I'm losing it all over the place. It's gone. It's coming in and going. I'm sorry. You have to edit that out.
Jaxson needs his brain repaired.
I was concerned.
What I was going to say is that oh God, wow, so do I.
It's going between us.
This is the co-regulation.
This is our relationship.
No, okay. What I was going to say was when you look at the relationship like as a third person or as its own entity, and you can and you can be aware and discover patterns within that don't help you or your partner. You become responsible, and you like, okay, I'm my own person. I'm going to show up the way I want to show up. It's like you become allies then in healing, which I think there's actually a book called Allies in Healing about relationships. But
oh, really? Beautiful.
Yeah, because what comes out in relationships is the portal to our most powerful transformation. And if we can heal it by regulating together, being together, staying connected, we're actually nurturing that part of ourselves that is reactive. And by doing that, it heals, and we show up differently next time in all the ways. So our partner is our primary path to evolution and growth and enlightenment ultimately, really, because they're just going to hold that mirror up every time.
Yeah.
You know? And it's
which is why it's so important to do that work.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's pretty extreme, but I've always thought, you know, it's not about the story. It's about how you're staying regulated and co-regulated really through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I just think that that's really, really important for people to hear, particularly in this day and age, I feel, where there's this sense that, well, I'll just get a new one, you know, and that comes with relationships all the time. Like, just throw it out and I'll get a new one. My battery's dead, you know, like it's just like, you're just going to get the same. If you don't do the work now, you're going to get another person who's going to show you the same work. So just choose who you do the work with.
This is what I always say. Like, if you love your partner, do this hard, sluggish work with someone you bloody love. Yeah. Because it's coming with you. Yeah. That is your baggage, not your partner. Yeah. You're going to take it to every single relationship you have. So pick who do you want to do this work with? Who do you want to do this growth with? Because it's so rewarding.
Yeah, it's very true. And it's also really important for people who are single and looking for relationships, who are dating, to know that it takes work. Like, I said this, was it today? No, yesterday, I've got a couple, and I said to them, he's really into CrossFit. And I said, well, you go to CrossFit every day to go fit. If you stop going to CrossFit, you're going to become unfit. Like, relationship is exactly the same. You have to do the work. There's no like way around that. It's, you know, it's just, we don't get taught that. We think, you know, thanks Disney and The Bachelor and all this rubbish that I like to watch that has just spread. It's just spread these like rumors that you know, it should be easy and fireworks and, you know, everything's grand once you meet that person.
Yeah, and the movie and the show always ends when they get together.
Yes.
That's a really good point. Oh my God, that is such a good point.
We really know, but we're not telling you the rest.
That's why there's no sequel.
That's right.
Exactly.
The dopamine's in the idea of it, the fantasy. Yeah. It's not in the actual reality.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. That is. Yeah. I've never realised that. You've ruined it. You've ruined my romantic rom-coms. Oh, it's hilarious. I want to talk a little bit about conflict, and I know we spoke about how important repair is, but what do you feel would be useful for people to do in terms of everything we've spoken about, the nervous system and regulation and co-regulation in conflict, if it's like exploding or they're not getting anywhere? Like, what do you say that they should do to support them in that?
Time out.
Yeah.
I hate time out.
Jaxson hates time out.
It's so galling for me to be like, time out, but I'm usually the one who doesn't, because I'm the escalator. So I'm usually the one who doesn't do the time out. Hilary does the time out. I'm like,
yeah. So, like, here's the thing.
But I always come back and say that.
When you're triggered, what happens is the part of your brain that is really good at being reasonable, being rational, taking stock, and choosing how you respond switches off. So your lid flips off. And the only thing that's left running the show is your emotional brain that is fighting for its life.
Yeah.
And if you are trying to have a reasonable, rational, problem-solving conversation with your frontal lobe somewhere in the sky, you're never going to get there. No. And the best thing as a couple that you can do in a heated argument where you're both triggered, your lids are off, is call time. So when you call time, you give each other space.
Yeah.
In that space, it's your responsibility as an individual to learn how to bring your lid back on, to calm yourself down, to regulate yourself, so that next time you address the heated conversation, you're not heated anymore, and you can be reasonable and you can be rational and come to some conclusion.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, having the right tools to talk through that when you are regulated is everything. Yeah. But if you could just learn time out and calm yourselves down, that would be enormous.
That helps with conflict a lot. And what's really important to remember is that, you know, once the emotions are going and your heart's going and the adrenaline's pumping or whatever, it's easy to forget, or it's easy to feel that you're, you know, now you're emotional, that's it, you can't control it. But if you can take yourself away and let yourself sit with it. Most emotions, when you truly feel them, they only last 90 seconds in the body. So you've got a minute and a half. Give yourself 2 minutes literally and let the emotions go and then see where you're at then. Because when you're arguing with someone, they're just feeding that rage. You know, they're feeding the reactivity, whether it might be shut down or withdrawal. You know, it's the same thing. If you notice that you're shutting down or withdrawing rather than escalating, then you need to call timeout as well so that you can come back. Because once you shut down, you can't be part of the conversation either.
But timeout only works if you pre-agree that timeout works.
Yeah.
It's also not a stab. It's not like, well, timeout.
Well, that's right. That's why we sort of teach couples like how to fight. You know, there's rules and there's ways to do it, and you have to have a pre-agreement around that too. You know, like no name calling. You're not allowed to bring up stuff from the past. You're not allowed to bring up their very worst nightmare to get back at them and hurt them. You know, like so many rules, and then it's like, and then if you escalate into your negative cycle, as in when we're triggered, we all sort of have a way that we show up. When I'm triggered, I get really, really loud and questioning and, you know, in your face. And when Hilary is triggered, she tends to shut right down and withdraw. So we've had to really dance with each other over the years to kind of, you know, work, because I'm like her amygdala's worst nightmare when I'm acting. So it's like I've had to learn a lot. And I
have the same pattern in my relationship.
Ah, right. Yeah, and I think that when
I'm you, Jaxson.
Yeah, I get you.
It's important to understand that for your partner, though, to know how they're going to respond and to know what you both need in that scenario, you know?
That's what I was going to say was another essential tool, is actually knowing your partner's activation cycles or their negative cycle. Like, where do they go when they're really in fight or flight? Where do they go if they're in shutdown? And what are the signs so that, you know, if I'm going off about something and Hilary's just shrinking into the couch and her eyes are glazing over, like even if I scream, she wouldn't hear me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's like,
I know.
You know, it's like, okay, she's far gone and I've got to come back. You know, like so I think it's a really good tool, that one.
Yeah, totally. I hope people really hear that, because I think if you actually logically understood what's happening with your brain, I always say to clients, your brain's left the building. The problem solving of your body, your brain has left the building. So you trying to have a logical conversation or do some problem solving, you don't have capacity. So like you're wasting energy, you're wasting time, you're hurting each other. Like it's just it's not great. So just take the time out. And I think what you said is really important in that time out, because so many people have time out and then in that space they go, all the ways the other person was wrong, and let me fight that argument in my head so I can come back with a stronger argument and really make my point known, you know, and that's not helpful because you're just staying heightened or staying, you know, tapped out as well. So it's, that's really, really, and the other thing that I just want to add to that is that when you come back into the conflict or the discussion about it, you might go into that zone again, you know, and so it might be another timeout, you know, like, and you do those timeouts as many times as you need so that it stays respectful and stays productive, and then you learn how to do it, right? Like it might be 15 times the first time you're trying to get through something because you don't know what you're doing, and that's okay.
Yeah, and being regulated and co-regulated together during conflict is a sure path through a problem-solving situation. I mean, I kind of feel that, you know, we're avoiding conflict when we go into our negative cycles, or when we get triggered and we get defensive and we start having a go. Like we're actually avoiding what the actual problem is. You know, create a decoy, create chaos to get out of it again. Yeah, so actually it's about being a bit brave and calming down and being like, what is the real issue?
Yeah, what's underneath this? It is not about the sink next to the dishwasher, you know? It's about respect or something, you know?
Well, and I think like when it comes to fighting fairly, you need to fight with how you feel, not with what the other person's doing. I think if you can, if you can say, I'm angry because I feel like I come home and I'm alone. I feel alone. I feel abandoned. That's like, it's really hard to be like, well, fuck you for feeling abandoned.
Yeah.
You know.
That's your problem.
Do not be in a relationship if they do that, everyone.
Yeah.
That's a red flag. Oh my gosh. I could talk to you guys all night, but I know you have pets waiting for you. And let's wrap it up. What I want to know from both of you is how people can find you, how they can work with you, how they can find your magic, and also for you to share a bit about what we have coming up collaboratively. Yeah.
Exciting. I'll talk about how people can find us, and you can talk about what's coming up.
Sounds good.
We are located at Luminous Body in Marrickville, and the best thing to do to get in touch with us is to either call our clinic on 8094 992 or to jump on the website info at what is it?
It's Luminous Body.
And then it'll be in the show notes anyway. So
luminousbody.co, and the book online, because we love meeting new people and helping people, and we have the most incredible staff.
Yeah, we got a great team. We're multidisciplinary, so if chiro is not your thing, we've got psychotherapy, naturopathy, and all that too.
Yeah, and follow you guys on Instagram, because I was just talking to a client today. You do such great reels all the time, and just really great practical information for people to be able to implement some of that stuff. If they don't live in Sydney and can't come and see you, so definitely check that out.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and so what we've got coming up. Yes, okay. What we've got coming up this year is a long-awaited and super exciting project that Hilary and I have just been dying to put on since we repaired our relationship, our marriage. We have a 3-part series of workshops, all on a Sunday between 9:30 and 4 p.m. So that helps with kids. Yeah, this 3-part series is teaching couples, coaching couples through how to show up as your best self in your relationship in such a way that you will get the best out of each other, how to co-create your dream relationship with the person you're with right now, and how to help them feel successful and collaborative in your relationship too. We cover things like exploring your own nervous system, how to co-regulate. We have co-regulation exercises, which are going to be awesome. We also are teaching people about their negative cycle, how to self-regulate, and how to come together through conflict. We're teaching people how to avoid defensiveness, contempt, stonewalling, and conflict as well. Not how to avoid conflict, how to avoid criticism. How to fight, how to repair. You name it, we've got everything you need really to assist you to evolve your relationship so it's not kind of the same one you had as a kid. And as you've been growing up with, shift patterns, all that kind of thing. And it's the 3 of us. You're going to be that.
And I think it's a beautiful mix also between in your body, how to be in your body, and also stuff to learn with your mind and practical stuff. I just think that us 3 combining have such a magical amount of skills between us that are so different that it's just going to work.
I agree.
Totally. I think in short, these workshops will give you the tools to have good relationships, good fights, good repairs, and good other things. If I could, I would wink.
Oh, you can't wink.
I can't wink. Hey! Yeah, through a mixture of understanding yourself and your partner and how you show up in your relationship.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, well, thank you so much for being here. Is there any last nuggets of wisdom that you want to share, or have you shared? Well, we definitely haven't shared it all. We could have 5 parts of this.
We could do many more of these.
So many nuggets.
Yeah, what's your nugget?
We've loved. None that I can think of right now.
Yeah, for everyone at home, it's 10:15 at night, so their brains are probably done.
We're a bit fried.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on. I just
you.
appreciate it so much.